On a stormy night, a chance encounter between a compassionate woman and a homeless man led to a series of unexpected events that would change both of their lives forever. The rain poured relentlessly, transforming the streets of Nashville into rivers of glistening water. Streetlights flickered, their glow reflecting off the soaked pavement as Amanda hurried through the cold. Her coat clung to her, offering little protection against the chill, but she didn't slow down. Walking briskly was her way of escaping not just the storm, but the loneliness that had engulfed her life. As she crossed an alley, something caught her attention. A figure curled beneath a soaked, tattered blanket under the awning of a closed shop. A man, his face partially obscured, sat motionless, his only defense against the elements a thin layer of fabric. Their eyes met for a brief moment. Amanda saw something in them: pain, exhaustion, and a story untold. She hesitated. The sensible thing would be to keep walking, especially on a night like this, but something rooted her to the spot. Taking a deep breath, she stepped closer. "Are you okay?" she asked softly, her voice almost drowned out by the rain. The man shifted slightly, his eyes widening in surprise. "I'm fine," he muttered weakly. "The rain is cold, but I'll manage." Amanda studied him more closely. His face, weathered by hardship, bore an expression of quiet resignation. Despite her fear, an urge to help him took hold. "Come with me," she said, her voice steady. "You shouldn't be out here in this weather." The man looked at her with disbelief. After a moment, he nodded, as though surrendering to a kindness he hadn't expected. As they walked to her apartment, Amanda's mind raced. Was this a mistake? She barely knew this man, yet her loneliness and the need to do something meaningful silenced her doubts. The street seemed darker as they approached her building, a modest structure that had once felt like a sanctuary, but now echoed with emptiness. Inside, Amanda's home was as somber as her thoughts. The walls, once adorned with bright photos and memories, now felt lifeless. Since Tom, her ex-husband, had left, the apartment had become a silent reminder of broken dreams. She glanced at the man beside her. His presence filled the space with an unfamiliar tension. "You can use the bathroom to clean up," she said, gesturing toward the hallway. "I'll find some clothes for you." Upstairs, Amanda opened her wardrobe. Her hands trembled as she pulled out a shirt and pants that had once belonged to Tom. The scent of her past wafted up, and for a moment, she stood frozen. Memories of laughter and shared evenings flooded back, only to be replaced by the sharp pain of his absence. Shaking her head, she carried the clothes downstairs. The man took them with a quiet, "Thank you." Amanda watched him disappear into the bathroom, the sound of running water breaking the silence. Needing a distraction, she headed to the kitchen and began preparing soup. Cooking, once a joyful activity, had become a way to manage her emotions. As the aroma filled the air, she allowed her thoughts to drift to Tom, his unexpected departure, the unanswered questions, and the hollow ache it left behind. The creak of the bathroom door pulled her back to the present. Turning, she froze. The man stood in the hallway, transformed. His clean-shaven face and neatly combed hair revealed features that felt oddly familiar. Dressed in Tom's clothes, he exuded a quiet dignity that unsettled her. "Thank you," he said, his voice softer and more confident now. "I feel like a person again. My name's Jack." Amanda forced a smile. "I'm Amanda. Come sit. The soup's ready." As they sat at the small kitchen table, an awkward silence settled between them. Amanda couldn't shake the sense of recognition, but she couldn't place him either. Finally, Jack broke the quiet. "You seem troubled," he observed gently. "If it's not too personal, may I ask what's on your mind?" Amanda hesitated, her gaze fixed on her bowl. "It's about my ex-husband, Tom," she began, her voice heavy with emotion. "He left after a fight years ago. I've heard nothing since. Not knowing where he is or what happened to him has been unbearable. Jack listened intently, his face etched with understanding. "That kind of pain, it leaves a mark," he said. "Living on the streets, I've seen how loss can shape people. But I've also seen incredible resilience." Amanda looked at him, surprised by the depth of his words. "It's just hard," she said. "I feel like I lost a part of myself when he left." Jack nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Sometimes helping others can help us heal," he said. "You've shown me kindness tonight. Maybe that's a step toward finding your own peace." For the first time in years, Amanda felt a glimmer of hope. Yet, as the night wore on, the nagging familiarity of Jack's presence lingered. Who was this man, really? And why did he stir memories she thought were buried forever? Jack stood in front of the mirror, staring at his reflection as if seeing a stranger for the first time. His newly trimmed hair revealed the contours of his face, and his clean-shaven jaw brought out sharp features that had been hidden for years. His eyes, now unclouded, seemed brighter, almost unfamiliar. He tilted his head, studying himself, as if searching for a fragment of recognition in the face, staring back at him. A strange mix of hope and unease bubbled within him. Taking a deep breath, Jack descended the stairs, his footsteps hesitant but deliberate. In the kitchen, Amanda was lost in the rhythm of preparing lunch. The sound of his approach made her glance over her shoulder, expecting the usual rugged figure she had come to know. Instead, she froze, the knife slipping from her hand onto the counter with a soft clatter. "Jack?" Her voice trembled as her eyes widened, disbelief and recognition mingling in her expression. You look so much like Tom." Her words hit Jack like a gust of wind. Confusion flickered across his face as he scratched his head. "Tom?" he echoed, his voice uncertain. "I don't understand, Amanda. I'm not Tom. I'm Jack." But Amanda wasn't listening. Her mind raced, her heart pounding. The resemblance was too striking to dismiss. She walked closer, her hands trembling as she reached out to touch his face, as though to confirm he was real. "It's not just your face," she whispered, tears brimming in her eyes. "It's the way you move, the way you look at me. It's him. It's Tom." "Jack, you have to remember something. Anything." Jack shook his head, the weight of her expectations pressing on him. "I've told you before, I don't remember much of my past. My life before the streets is a blur, like a puzzle with missing pieces." He paused, searching her face for understanding. "I'm sorry, Amanda, but I'm not the man you think I am." Amanda stepped back, her emotions swirling between frustration and hope. She turned abruptly, heading to the living room. From a shelf, she retrieved an old photograph in a worn wooden frame. Her hands shook as she brought it to him. "Look at this," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "This was taken years ago. It's me and Tom. Do you see? That's you, Jack. That's us." Jack took the photo, his hands as unsteady as hers. He stared at the image, a younger Amanda, glowing with happiness, standing next to a man who bore an unsettling resemblance to himself. His breath hitched as he examined the picture, yet his mind refused to connect the dots. "I don't remember this," he said, his voice barely audible. "It feels familiar, but I can't explain why." Amanda's tears spilled over. "You don't have to remember everything right now," she said, her tone softening. "But let me help you. Let's find out who you really are." Jack sighed deeply, nodding. "All right, Amanda. If it means this much to you, I'll try." In the days that followed, Amanda threw herself into uncovering the truth about Jack's past. She called shelters, hospitals, and even police departments, but every lead ended in disappointment. It was as though Jack's life before they met had been erased. Despite their growing bond, the unanswered questions hung between them like a shadow. Amanda couldn't look at Jack without seeing echoes of Tom, and Jack couldn't escape the nagging feeling that there was more to his story than he could recall. One crisp Saturday afternoon, they decided to take a walk in the local park. The rain-soaked paths glistened under the sun, and the air was filled with the scent of renewal. They strolled in silence, the tension between them unspoken but palpable. As they reached a bench near the lake, Amanda finally broke the silence. "Jack," she began cautiously, "do you ever feel like there's something inside you? Something you can't quite grasp but know is there?" Jack stared at the rippling water, his expression thoughtful. "Yes," he admitted. "Since the night you brought me here, I've felt it. It's like a door I can't open, no matter how hard I try." Amanda took his hand, her grip firm but comforting. "Then let's open it together," she said. "Maybe finding your past will help us both find peace." That evening, Amanda suggested combing through hospital records for any clues about Jack's identity. Jack agreed, and the two of them spent weeks diving into archives and making countless calls. Just when they were about to lose hope, a breakthrough came. A hospital had records of an unidentified patient who matched Jack's description. Their hearts raced as they drove to the hospital. The journey was silent, each lost in their thoughts. Amanda prayed for answers, while Jack braced himself for whatever truth awaited. At the hospital, a nurse escorted them to the archives. Amanda's grip on Jack's hand tightened as they opened the file. Inside were photos and details of a severe car accident years ago. The man in the photos was unrecognizable at first glance, but as Jack studied them, fragments of memory began to stir. His breathing quickened and a wave of dizziness overtook him. Before Amanda could react, Jack collapsed. "Help!" she screamed, panic gripping her. "Someone, help!" Nurses rushed to Jack's side, placing him on a stretcher and taking him to a nearby room. Amanda followed, her heart pounding in her chest. Minutes later, Jack stirred, his eyes fluttering open. When he looked at Amanda, something was different. "Amanda," he whispered, his voice filled with emotion. "It's really you." Amanda gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Tom?" Tears streamed down Jack's, or rather, Tom's, face. "I remember now," he said, his voice breaking. "The accident, losing everything. It's all coming back." Amanda threw her arms around him, sobbing. "I knew it. I knew I'd find you again." The pieces of their shattered lives slowly began to fit together. Years earlier, Tom had been in a devastating accident that erased his identity. Without a name or family, he had been shuffled between hospitals and shelters, eventually ending up on the streets. Now reunited, Amanda and Tom held each other tightly, vowing never to let go again. The journey of rediscovery had been painful, but it had brought them back to the one thing they had both lost: each other.